My first experience with the outdoors was in Sri Lanka. I was a part of a Boy Scouts troop that went camping in the wilderness all the time. Sri Lanka had Boy Scouts, did you know that? No. I have to admit though, I was, my highest honor was being the troop librarian. It's kind of the nerdiest thing you could do as a Boy Scout. I had a badge with a Dewey Decimal System, like that was pretty special. But Sri Lanka is also where the journey of my journey to purpose begins. So my family still lives there, and I was back there for my brother's wedding. You know, when your little brother gets married, it's a joyous occasion. And I was back there for what was hopefully going to be this amazing 3 weeks of joy and love. But I happened to be there on December 26, 2004, which for those of you who may know was the day that the Asian tsunami hit that island. And it turned from a tropical paradise to looking like this. It was a pretty devastating thing to be part of. I was safe, I was unharmed, I was in Colombo, which is the part of the island that didn't get hit by the wave. But I woke up in a country where 30,000 of my fellow countrymen had died in one day. Like everybody else there, I got involved in the relief operations in the weeks and months that followed, did what we could to raise funds for refugee camps, things like that. And I went back to London where I lived at the time, and I couldn't get out of my mind what had just happened. I'd be walking down the street and I would just spontaneously burst into tears. And it turned out that I had a particular form of PTSD, which was called survivor guilt. Why had I survived when all those other people hadn't? And I realized what I did for a living. I was working in marketing, I was working in business. I realized what I did for a living couldn't have made a damn sight difference to any of those people there. And at that moment, I realized there was a seed planted in me where I started to go on this journey to decide whether we could use this force of business to do some good in the world. That was the beginning of the journey that brought me here to you today. Now, the world today seems like a pretty toxic place, right? Seems more divisive, more filled with hateful rhetoric than ever before. It's easy sometimes to just want to curl up in a fetal position and do nothing. And this isn't just the United States I'm talking about. This is globally. This is protests against inequality in France. This is the rise of neo-Nazis and anti-immigration sentiment around the world. This is the millions of kids who are protesting climate change in the streets across the world. It seems sometimes like we've gone too far and there's nothing that can be done to help solve some of these problems. But what gives me hope is you guys. What gives me hope is the idea that leaders and people in these corporations can rise up and become one of the greatest forces for good this planet has ever seen.